I'm going to just return to some of the themes that I spoke on this morning. But before I do so, I want to say how excited we should be to have in the room two persons who may be leading a lot of the efforts that we're talking about here today in very important bodies. We have Sultan Al-Jabbar, who will be heading the COP negotiations, and we have Minister Jagdeo, who now will play a crucial role in the G20 leadership, India's leadership in the G20. Minister Jagdeo, I want to thank you for remembering small islands, island developing states, because often they do not factor into the global scheme of things, and they never have a champion in the bodies that matter. So I'm hoping that, given the importance of these two persons here, that we can urge them to have a number of things addressed. Not the details of what should be addressed, but basically the principles in these two important bodies, upcoming bodies. First is the issue that I spoke of this morning. Return to the principle of equity and justice in not just climate issues, but on sustainable development. Many developing countries will never achieve sustainable development goals unless they have the financing to do that. Secondly, the question of balance, that we need balance in the discussions that take place at these various bodies if we're going to find lasting solutions. So the last COP, you had two extremes. You had the oil and gas companies coming there and saying, oh, we don't want to stop we will not stop producing oil and gas. We believe that carbon capture, utilization, and storage could be the technology of the future that would allow us to trap the CO2 emissions. Then on the other extreme, you have a group that said you have to stop production of oil and keep everything in the ground. I suspect the answer lies in all of this. We need to reduce the production of fossil fuel. We need carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and we need a mass transit into renewable energy. It is these three combined action on all three fronts that will deliver lasting solutions. But often the debate is between the extremes, and sometimes it clouds the search for solutions. So balance is crucial, balancing extreme interests. That's very important. And then, as I mentioned, the small countries. Now, the small countries do not need only climate finance. They need a reform of the global financial system for them to achieve sustainable development. We're dealing with the two issues separately, sustainable development and climate resilience in the team, but they are interlinked. What do I mean? Most of the countries, say in the Caribbean, are fiscally stressed. They have one sector, maybe tourism, that brings in all their wealth, so they're extremely vulnerable. And they're debt stressed too. A lot of them are using 75% of their revenue to service debt. So for them, unless those issues, all of those issues are addressed now by some of the multilateral agencies, they will never be able to have a sustainable medium-term economic framework, leaving out, much less addressing or having the resources to address the catastrophic damage of weather-related events that come upon them almost every season. You have hurricane. So the search for sustainability for those countries have to include all of these options. We have to have a contingent line of credit from the multilateral financial institutions that they can draw down on if there is a hurricane immediately, for them to work their way out of the fiscal situation. They have to be able to expand their economy and be able to trade, because they can't, their growth can't be driven by internal demand, and they need a favorable trading environment to do that. That's why I want to return to what I said this morning. We're not talking about just sustainability of ecosystems for them. We're talking about the sustainability of the country themselves, these countries, and their future well-being. And then added to that, the planet heading to disaster now. Because right now, it's clear that we are not going to achieve any of the targets. We can't mass this over. The pledges are too small to achieve the 1.5 or even 2 degrees rise above pre-industrial level. So we have a tendency to restate the problem all the time. We know that we need to raise financing for renewable energy at scale. We know that we need to shift to renewable energy for electricity and transport. We know we have to decarbonize the industrial processes, particularly for production of cement and steel that are carbon intensive. We know we need to do sustainable agriculture. We know we need to cut deforestation. So these things are known. And those are the things that matter in the sustainability framework. But for all of those to happen, you have to have, from a developing world perspective, the ability to do those. In Guyana's case, as I said earlier this morning, we can do it so now not because we love the oil and gas industry, and I hope that we can have that debate with Professor Sachs at some point in time when he said the world doesn't need oil from Guyana. But I'm not going to pursue that debate today. We have laid out how we have a sustainable framework for using our forests and the revenue earned from the sale of forest carbon to give our people access to energy, renewable energy. So we're helping to fund our energy transition from those resources and from the oil and gas resources. As I said before, triple installed capacity and yet cut emissions by 70% by 2030. I'm here in India, through the grant from the Indian government, we have 30, not a grant, a loan. We're buying 30,000 units, small solar units, to give every household in the hinterland, the indigenous people where they live, access to electricity. We're using it for adaptation purposes, for billions of dollars. So that's how we are mainstreaming it into our sustainability development agenda, so in Guyana's case. And we are going to ensure that we do our part in spite of us being a producer of oil and gas. But if you have any justice about climate issue, the existing producers have to make way now for some of the new producers because the world will still need the demand. And as Mr. Desai said, sustainable consumption. If the world wants to decarbonize faster, it will cut demand for fossil fuel faster. And so sometimes we get lectures from people who are growing their demand all the time for fossil fuel or for energy. And then they lament the fate that it has to be supplied from fossil fuel, yet they're not providing the financing to introduce renewable energy at scale. So the debate has to continue, but the debate should search for solutions, not to posture. We've had too much posturing by different groups, and many have interests that they pursue. And in that posturing, we lose the search for solution. Thank you very much.